I'm not coming back. If I've met someone better and already moved your things to storage. These chilling words flashed across my phone screen, ending 15 years of marriage in 2 swift sentences and a screenshot. It was 11:42 p.m. on a Thursday, and I, Leonard Kessler, 54, stood in the kitchen of our Des Moines condo, staring at the message. My wife, Dana, was supposedly on day 4 of a girls' trip to Palm Springs. The accompanying screenshot showed a bank transfer. $118,000 moved from our joint savings to her personal account. I quietly finished my coffee, a strange calm settling over me. For months, the signs had been there: weekend getaways, stretching longer. New clothes I never saw her wear, phone calls abruptly ending when I entered a room. I noticed it all. As a forensic accountant, spotting discrepancies is my profession. Yet I said nothing. Perhaps that was my initial mistake. Or maybe it was marrying someone who dismissed my career as mere spreadsheets and dull numbers. I opened my laptop and accessed a discreet email account, one Dana knew nothing about. 3 notifications from my bank's security system immediately popped up. Someone had attempted to change passwords on accounts Dana had never even known existed. She was being incredibly thorough, and I had to grudgingly respect her meticulousness. I picked up my phone and typed 2 words in response: good luck. Then I called my brother, Jason. Remember that contingency plan we discussed 5 years ago? I asked when he answered. You're sure? He queried. Yes, I replied. She just made her move. I hung up, my gaze drifting to the wedding photo still hanging on the wall. It was the only picture left in the condo that featured both of us. I should have noticed that too. I first met Dana Bowman at an alumni event for the University of Iowa. I was 38. Newly divorced from a brief first marriage and entirely consumed with building my forensic accounting practice. Dana was 34, radiating vibrancy, ambition, and a complete disinterest in what I did for a living. I don't need to understand the details, she'd often say whenever I attempted to explain a complex case. As long as you make enough for us to live well. We married after a year of dating. I personally helped her launch her yoga studio, funding the entire venture from my personal savings. When she expressed a desire for a larger house in a more prestigious neighborhood, I readily agreed. When she craved luxury cars and extravagant vacations, I simply nodded and signed the checks without question. My father had once given me a quiet warning. We were fixing his deck, and he paused, hammer in hand. Son, I notice your wife spends a lot of your money, he said carefully. Just make sure she values what you do to earn it. I brushed off his comment at the time, but the observation lingered in my mind. 6 years into our marriage, I began quietly, meticulously restructuring my assets. Nothing illegal, merely protective measures. I established 2 limited liability companies, set up secure trusts, invested strategically in cryptocurrency, and maintained offshore accounts for my international clientele. Dana knew only about our joint checking and savings accounts. Nothing more. I observed as she became increasingly immersed in the world of fitness influencers. Her Instagram followers swelled into the thousands. She started taking numerous trips with her burgeoning wellness community. Initially for weekends, then for full weeks at a time. You wouldn't enjoy it, she'd dismissively say. It's all yoga talk and juice cleanses. Last Christmas, she even forgot my birthday. When I gently reminded her the next day, she immediately bought me an expensive watch and offered a breezy excuse. I've just been so busy with the studio expansion. I accepted the watch, but that very night, I finalized the comprehensive paperwork on my contingency plan. All the signs had been undeniably present. I simply hadn't wanted to see the complete picture of what was truly unfolding. The morning after her revealing text, I woke early and made coffee, adhering to my usual routine. Habits are notoriously difficult to break, even when your entire world has just imploded. I logged into my primary financial management system, a robust platform custom-built for my practice, but adapted for my personal use. With a few decisive keystrokes, I activated the contingency protocol Jason and I had meticulously designed years earlier. First, I immediately froze all joint accounts and credit cards. Then, I initiated a fraud alert on the $118,000 transfer. leveraging my extensive banking contacts to expedite the process. I simultaneously dispatched comprehensive documentation, proving financial misconduct to my attorney, along with explicit instructions to file for divorce immediately. Then, I called my mother. "Dana's left me," I stated simply. "She took the money and moved my things out while she was supposedly on vacation." My mother was silent for a moment, absorbing the shock. "I'm sorry, Leonard," she finally said, voice laced with a subtle lack of surprise. "But I can't say I'm surprised. What are you going to do?" "What I've been preparing to do for years," I replied, my voice steady. "Protect what's mine." An hour later, my phone lit up with Dana's name. I declined the call. 10 more calls followed in rapid succession. Then, a terse text message. "What the hell did you do? The money's gone and my cards don't work." I didn't respond. Instead, I drove directly to the storage facility listed in her earlier text. Using the code she had so conveniently sent, I retrieved 2 boxes containing my clothes and my laptop. The rest of my belongings, cherished family photos, beloved books, sentimental mementos from my father were nowhere to be found. That's when something hardened within me, a cold resolve settling deep in my gut. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about 15 years casually discarded without a second thought. It was about someone believing they could simply erase me from my own life. I stopped at a quiet coffee shop and opened my laptop, using specialized financial databases available only to licensed investigators. I pulled up every piece of information I could find on Trey Harmon, the fitness influencer. Dana had been conspicuously tagging in her photos for months. He was the someone better she had so callously mentioned. What I uncovered confirmed my deepest suspicions. Trey's gym business was leveraged to the hilt, teetering on the brink of collapse. He had 3 maxed-out business credit cards, a commercial lease he clearly couldn't afford, and Dana had already co-signed on a substantial car loan with him 2 months earlier. I closed my laptop, the pieces of the puzzle falling into place, and drove to a hotel. For the first time in years, I felt a profound clarity about what needed to be done. I wasn't angry anymore. I was sharply focused. Monday morning, I walked into my office as if nothing out of the ordinary had happened. "Okay." My assistant, Valerie, looked up, her expression clearly surprised. "Leonard, I thought you'd be taking time off. Dana called here 3 times already. Did she?" A question, but as a statement of fact. "She sounded upset," Valerie continued. "Said there was a misunderstanding with your accounts and needed to reach you urgently." I nodded, a plan forming in my mind. "Okay, if she calls again, tell her to contact my attorney." By noon, Dana had escalated from persistent calls to appearing in person at my office. The receptionist buzzed my office. "Your wife is here. She's quite insistent." I sighed and walked to the lobby. Dana stood there, her designer sunglasses pushed back on her head, her yoga clothes perfectly coordinated and impossibly chic. She smiled when she saw me, the same practiced, manipulative smile she had employed for 15 years whenever she wanted something from me. "Leonard, there's been a huge misunderstanding with the bank," she declared, her voice loud enough for everyone in the lobby to hear. "All our accounts are frozen." "It's not a misunderstanding," I said quietly, my voice calm and controlled. "You transferred money without authorization." The bank flagged it as fraud. Her smile faltered, a flicker of fear in her eyes. "It was our joint account. I'm your wife. You're my soon-to-be ex-wife, who emptied our savings while informing me." "You'd moved out and found someone new," I countered, my voice firm. "That's textbook financial misconduct." Her voice dropped to a venomous hiss. "You cannot do this to me. I've already put deposits down on a new place. I've made commitments to Trey Harmon." "Yes," I said, my gaze unwavering. "I know all about those commitments." Her face went white, the color draining from it. "You're investigating me?" "No," I replied, my voice flat. "Just protecting myself from fraud." "I'll fight this," she snapped, regaining some of her composure. "I deserve half of everything." I looked at her evenly. "Half of what's in those accounts." "Sure, but you seem to be under the impression that's all there is." She blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" You'll find out in discovery, I said. Then turned and walked back to my office, leaving her stunned in the lobby. That afternoon, I received a scathing email from Dana's newly hired attorney, demanding immediate access to all financial records, and threatening to expose fabricated irregularities in my accounting practice if I didn't comply. It was an amateur move, a baseless threat with no substance behind it. I simply forwarded it to my attorney with one concise line: proceed as planned. By evening, Dana had skillfully rallied mutual friends to her side, my phone filled with a barrage of messages, all asking why I was being vindictive and controlling. Not a single person had bothered to question where she had been the past week or who she had been with. No one asked about the substantial money she had so brazenly taken. I didn't bother responding. Instead, I went to the gym, not Dana's trendy studio or Trey's flashy fitness center, but the familiar no-frills community center where I'd been working out for years. I lifted weights until my arms shook with exhaustion, then drove back to my hotel room. The trap was closing, but not around me. 3 days later, my attorney called. We found something interesting, she said, her voice betraying a hint of satisfaction. Dana's been siphoning money from your joint account for over a year. Small transfers at first, then larger ones. To where? I asked, though a chilling certainty already formed in my mind. Multiple accounts, she confirmed, some to her personal savings, but most to a business LLC registered to Trey Harmon. Almost $80,000 total, and she used our joint funds as the source. Yes, I confirmed, which means we can add financial infidelity to the divorce filing. I thanked her and hung up. I wasn't surprised, but the concrete confirmation still felt like a punch to the gut. Dana hadn't just left me for someone else. She'd been meticulously planning her exit for over a year, systematically funding both her departure and her new boyfriend's failing business with my money. That night, I received a text from an unknown number. You need to back off. Dana deserves better than you. So don't make this uglier than it needs to be. Trey Harmon was getting directly involved. It's interesting. I drove to my brother's house the next morning. Jason worked in digital security, his expertise the perfect complement. To my financial knowledge, we'd collaborated on complex cases before, but this was undeniably different. I need everything you can find on Harmon Fitness LLC, I told him. Bank records, loans, credit applications, everything. Jason raised an eyebrow, a question in his eyes. Legal channels only, right? Of course, I affirmed. We're just connecting public dots faster than most people could. 3 hours later, we had our answer. Trey Harmon wasn't just in debt. He was profoundly underwater, drowning in it. His polished social media persona portrayed immense success, but his underlying business was failing catastrophically. The new equipment, the ambitious expansion, flashy promotional events, all were funded through incredibly risky loans. And more recently, through Dana's increasingly desperate investments.
Oh.
But there was something else. Something Dana couldn't possibly have known. Look at this, Jason said, pointing to his screen. Harmon applied for a small business loan 4 months ago. Used the gym equipment as collateral. That's normal, I said, my voice flat. Yeah, but look who co-signed. I leaned forward, my gaze fixed on the screen. The document clearly showed Dana's signature on a staggering $175,000 equipment loan. She co-signed before she left you, Jason said quietly. But here's the kicker. The loan specifies joint responsibility with her spouse. They used your marital status to secure better terms. I stared at the screen, a cold realization dawning on me. She put my assets on the hook for his loan without my knowledge. Exactly, Jason confirmed. And there's more. 3 credit cards, a car lease, and the new commercial space rental, all co-signed by Dana. All leveraging your marital assets as security. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, children were playing innocently in the yard next door, utterly oblivious to the complex, brutal complications of the adult world. She has no idea what she's done, I said finally, my voice low, and neither does he. The next morning, I met with my attorney and laid out every single detail of what we'd uncovered. I want to move quickly, I told her, before they realize what's happening. She reviewed the meticulously compiled documents, her expression grim, and nodded. We'll file for emergency asset protection today. The loan fraud alone is enough to freeze everything until the divorce is settled. That afternoon, I drove to Harmon Fitness. The gym was sleek and aggressively modern, with generic motivational quotes painted on the walls and trays artificially tanned, face plastered across the main entrance. Inside, a scattering of 20-somethings in expensive workout gear took endless selfies between half-hearted sets. Trey spotted me immediately. He was taller in person than he appeared in his social media posts. With the artificial tan and perfectly capped teeth of someone who had meticulously built their entire career on superficial appearances, he walked over, his hand extended, his smile perfectly calibrated. "You must be Leonard," he said, his voice smooth and practiced. "Dana's mentioned you." "I'm sure she has," I replied, deliberately not taking his offered hand. "We need to talk privately." His practiced smile faltered slightly, but he led me to his office, glass-walled enclosure that was visible to everyone but soundproofed. "What can I do for you?" he asked, closing the door behind us. I placed a thin folder on his desk. "This is every financial document connecting you to Dana? Loans, credit cards, leases, all consigned using our marital assets as security?" He picked up the folder cautiously, his brow furrowed in confusion. "I don't understand." "It's simple," I explained, my voice devoid of emotion. "Dana used our marriage to back your business loans. Now we're divorcing, and those guarantees are invalid." The color visibly drained from his face as he frantically flipped through the pages, his eyes wide with dawning comprehension. "These are all legitimate business arrangements between Dana and me?" Maybe I conceded, "but the banks approve them based on our combined assets and income." "Assets she no longer has access to." He closed the folder, his voice barely a whisper. "What do you want?" "Nothing from you," I replied, my gaze unwavering. "I just thought you should know what's coming. The banks will be calling those loans due very soon." "Dana said you were wealthy," he said, his voice hardening, a trace of anger now replacing his fear. "That money's not an issue for you." "Money's never been the issue," I replied, my voice even. "Trust was." I stood up to leave, but paused at the door, a final thought forming. One more thing. When Dana moved out, she took some items of sentimental value to me. His family photos, my father's watch, things money can't replace. He stared at me for a long moment, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. "I'll see what I can do." I nodded and left, the silence of the gym settling back around. The next day, a courier delivered a nondescript box to my hotel. Inside were the missing photos, my father's cherished watch, and other personal items. No note was included. That same afternoon, my attorney confirmed that the emergency asset protection had been granted. All shared assets would remain frozen. Until the divorce was finalized, a legal maneuver that effectively choked off Dana's financial lifeline. I logged into my financial management system and reviewed the alerts. Dana had frantically attempted to access our frozen accounts 17 times in the past 24 hours. She had also tried, unsuccessfully, to open a new credit line using our home as collateral. Denied. My phone lit up with her name again. This time I answered. "What have you done?" she demanded, her voice shaking with barely suppressed fury. "The bank called in Trey's loans. All of them. They're seizing the equipment tomorrow." "That's unfortunate," I said calmly, my voice steady, feeling nothing but a detached sense of finality. "This is vindictive, Leonard. You're destroying him to get back at me." "I'm not doing anything to him," I stated, my voice firm. "I'm simply protecting myself from fraud. You used our marriage to secure his loans without my knowledge or consent. That's illegal. We can work this out," she said, her voice softening suddenly, a desperate plea creeping into her tone. "Come home, we'll talk." 15 years of marriage, and she still believed I could be manipulated so icily, so transparently. "There's nothing to work out," I replied, cutting her off. "The divorce will proceed. The fraud investigation will continue, and Trey will learn an expensive lesson about due diligence. I ended the call and blocked her number. The finality of the action, a quiet satisfaction. That night, I slept better than I had in months, a deep, restorative sleep. 3 weeks later, I sat in a conference room, waiting as Dana and her attorney arrived for our court-ordered mediation. She looked visibly tired, the expensive designer outfit and perfect makeup unable to fully conceal the strain etched on her face. Her attorney spoke first, a forced politeness in his voice. My client is willing to be reasonable about the division of assets, despite the aggressive tactics employed thus far. My attorney smiled politely, a hint of steel in her eyes. That's good to hear, because there's been a development. She slid a document across the polished table. The bank has completed its fraud investigation. They've determined that Dana forged Leonard's signature on multiple loan documents using their marital assets as collateral without his knowledge. Dana's attorney quickly skimmed the document, his face paling, the weight of the revelation visibly impacting him. We'll need time to review this, he stammered. Of course, my attorney said, her voice calm but firm. But you should know that. The bank has already referred the matter to the district attorney. This meeting is a courtesy before criminal charges are filed. Dana stared at me, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief. Criminal charges, Leonard? You can't be serious. I met her gaze steadily, unflinching. I didn't file the charges. The bank did. That's what happens when you commit loan fraud. Attorney whispered something urgently in her ear, his words a desperate plea. She shook her head vehemently, refusing to accept the gravity of the situation. If Ms. Bowman is willing to sign our proposed settlement agreement today, my attorney continued, ignoring Dana's defiance, Leonard is prepared to provide a statement to the bank that could mitigate the criminal implications. You won't press charges for the theft of personal property or the unauthorized transfer from the joint account. I watched as Dana's carefully constructed world, built on deceit and manipulation, finally collapsed around her. She had expected anger, jealousy, perhaps even desperate begging from me. She hadn't expected consequences, the cold, unyielding hand of the law. The settlement is generous, I said quietly, addressing her directly. You keep your yoga studio, which was always profitable. You keep your car and personal belongings. You receive no alimony, and you assume full responsibility for the substantial debts you incurred in my name. And Trey? She asked, her voice barely audible, desperate for a lifeline for her lover. Mr. Harmon's financial issues are his own problem, my attorney replied, her tone final. But without your husband's assets backing those loans, I understand. The bank has already begun repossession proceedings. Dana signed the papers without further argument, her hand trembling slightly. As we left the conference room, she caught my arm, her eyes filled with a strange mix of disbelief and resentment. I never thought you'd fight back like this, she said, her voice hollow. You always just went along with everything. That was my choice, I replied, my voice firm. Just like this was your choice. I walked away without looking back, a profound sense of liberation washing over me. A month later, I moved out of the hotel and into a small, charming house near downtown Des Moines. Nothing fancy, just a craftsman with good bones that needed some work, the kind of project that would keep my hands busy and my mind occupied during the quiet evenings. I heard through mutual friends that Dana had relocated to Colorado to start over. Her Instagram predictably now showed serene mountain views and saccharine, inspirational quotes about new beginnings. Dre's gym had been sold to a national chain, and he'd apparently moved to Miami to expand his brand, no doubt leveraging his social media persona once more. Neither of them ever mentioned what had truly transpired. People rarely advertise their failures. My brother Jason stopped by one Saturday to help me install new cabinets in the kitchen. Heard anything from Dana? He asked casually as we measured for the hinges. No, I said, and I don't expect to. You know, you could have taken her for everything, he mused. The fraud charges alone would have ensured that. I shrugged, dismissing the thought. What would be the point? She's no longer my problem? We worked in comfortable silence for a while, the rhythmic sounds of measuring, cutting, mounting, creating a meditative state. "I'm thinking of taking some time off," I said eventually. "Maybe drive up to Minnesota, do some fishing at the cabin." "Dad would like that," Jason replied, a fond note in his voice. "You haven't been there since he passed." That evening after Jason left, I sat on my back porch with a glass of bourbon. The neighborhood was quiet, with only the occasional distant dog bark or child's laugh breaking the tranquil silence. It was profoundly different from the upscale sterile community Dana had insisted on, more real, somehow more grounded. I thought about the last 15 years, how I had allowed someone else to define my life, my worth. How I'd noticed the warning signs, but consciously chosen to ignore them. How, when the inevitable moment finally arrived, I had been prepared, because some deep, intuitive part of me had always known this day would come. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt profoundly, utterly free. Next morning, I called my office and informed them I'd be taking 2 weeks off. Then I packed my truck, locked up the house, and headed north. No itinerary, no expectations, just the open road stretching before me. And for the first time in years, no invisible ledger of resentments to balance, just an unburdened journey ahead.